process adopted by some of the police forces where they try and give people the opportunity to move before arrest, you know, advising them of all the implications that it's going to have. And of course, when he got to the point of you need to consider the implications that getting arrest might have on your employment, and of course they all laughed. Anyway, this particular police officer got to the 4th stage of this 5-step warning, and he realised that there was no way they were moving, and if he read the 5th stage, he was going to have to enact an arrest. So when he realised after reading the 4th stage they weren't moving, in the video it's great because he just goes, oh fuck it, and throws the 5-step warning script that he's reading over his shoulder. Anyway, about 20 minutes later, an inspector arrives. And the reason they, by the way, they normally send a sergeant is because a sergeant's regarded as junior management. So if he makes a screw up, you know, basically it's not his pay grade. Whereas if an inspector or above makes a decision, he's regarded as management. So often the sergeant is sent out so that if anything that does occur that shouldn't have occurred, they can sort of say, well, you know, he was overstepping the mark. Anyway, the inspector arrived and he walked up to the gate and he said, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing today? Yes, I understand that you're protesting against the fracking, and obviously you're preventing these vehicles from leaving. So how long are you planning to stay here? This was about 2:30 in the afternoon. He said, how long are you planning to stay here? And they looked at each other and went, dusk? And the inspector said, okay, I think we can work with that. So, what happened was neither Rathlin Energy nor the Humberside Police wanted to have to arrest any of these people who were all very highly regarded, fine upstanding members of the local community. As I said, one was the former Labour Party leader of Hull City Council. There was a couple of other councillors in there, one from Hull and another one from the East Riding Council, say the former Director of Education and Children's Services of East Riding Council, and the police nor the company wanted them arrested. And so what happened is every time a vehicle went into this well site, these Jerry activists phoned each other and got half a dozen up there and they blockaded the well. And on August the 12th, and it's indelibly printed on my mind, on August the 12th, 2015, Rathlin Energy announced that they were going to abandon that well site and return it to its former agricultural glory. And this is community activism. And of course, it doesn't get any great deal of publicity because, you know, basically the police don't want it. I mean, everybody in the anti-fracking community knows about the Jerry activists of Crawberry Hill. And then, you know, these tactics were developed a stage further in Yorkshire, and a very, very successful campaign at Kirby Misperton with Third Energy, which Third Energy were trying to frack, but they're not on the well site, and they basically will never be going back to Kirby Misperton. So community activism works. So Mark Steele and the trauma that he has had and continues to have with Gateshead Council should tell you that, you know, one individual putting their head above the parapet, it's going to get taken out. But when you've got community groups with no chairman, no leader, it's a community group of concerned citizens, and you can replicate these community groups across the country, all speaking to councillors who of course all speak to each other. They're not operating in a total silo, and then getting to MPs, you know, by going to their surgeries, because, you know, I can tell you, across Yorkshire and Lancashire, it got to the point where MPs were going, you've come to talk to me about fracking, haven't you? You know, I mean, they know. And the more they know, some of them just sort of stick their head in the sand, but there are others who actually say, you know what, I need to know more. And right now, one of the reasons that you know, we've been so successful in fighting fracking in the UK is because, you know, you've done the job with the Welsh Assembly, and you know, in England we're still working on trying to you know, develop MPs who will take the case head on. And right now our biggest champion is a guy called Lee Rowley, who's the Conservative MP for North East Derbyshire. It's absolutely on point. He's introduced a private members bill, which I think got its second reading yesterday. which would prevent the government from ever raising the current traffic light system where they have to stop if they trigger an earthquake in 0.5. So community activism is absolutely the key. If an NGO starts to emerge to fight 5G, smart meters, we've got a real problem because the establishment knows how to deal with NGOs. That's why we need a network of loose-knit, autonomous community groups right across the country. And because every single street in the country is going to be affected by this, in the ideal situation, every street would have a group of people challenging this 5G agenda. Now, we're not going to get everybody involved, that's for sure. And don't waste your time trying to convince somebody who really just isn't ready to hear this. But even 2% of the population, 2% of the UK is 3 million people. And let me tell you, when we get to the point of 3 million people having concerns about this technology, then we have a real chance to get it shut down. But we've got to get it shut down before they switch it all on, and then we're told it's too late. Because at that point, it's going to be a lot more difficult. You know, with fracking, it's always said that the easiest rig to stop is the first one. The most difficult rig to stop is the 10,000th. And it's going to be the same with this. It would have been real easy if we'd have had this heads up before we saw the first LED streetlight being put up. But they've got a long, long, long way to go. And that's our opportunity to get this shut down. So thank you so much to Nick and Suzanne for organising this event this evening. And as I said, Nick's already said that there's going to be another event here in a couple of weeks. And hopefully what comes out of this will be, a few other events, which will then trigger other events. And as we spread this, then it becomes a groundswell of community activism. And once people actually realise the significance, not only of the surveillance technology, but more importantly, the health implications, and particularly the health to our youth, then hopefully, we'll get the traction that we need to get this shut down. So, Nick, thank you very much for the invitation.
So I don't know how we want to work this. Is everyone happy shouting, or does people want to come to the front and pose their question?
You see the light?
Okay, so who has a question? We have Mano there.
What do you think are the implications of this, the government and the mainstream media story about Huawei being involved with the 5G and the concern that the Chinese government is going to use it to spy on us? Do you think that will change anything higher up?
Good question.
It's a very good question. I can tell you that it's Mark Steele who actually triggered this concern with the British security services. Now, Mark would claim to be the originator of the idea because Mark was following very closely what was going on in the US, and actually it was in the US that the issue of potential security breaches with Highway was first mentioned. So Mark discussed it with British security services. They looked at it and said, oh my God, you might be right here. Because the bottom line is, you could almost argue that it would be remiss of Highway to be rolling out this technology without actually having built a backdoor in it. Yeah. So, mind you, forgive me, this is just an observation, but I've always made the observation that all the Chinese need to do is actually activate all the Chinese restaurants around the country and we're screwed anyway. There is also the observation that the security issue may be what they use to try and slow this down. Because if they admit that they accept there's health issues, then it opens up a whole can of worms, which we know ultimately has to be opened up. So consider the possibility that the establishment might be more comfortable talking about the security risk which gives them time to do a little bit more evaluation and then find another way maybe to slow it down or shut it down. So I think it's a very, very real concern. You know, it's always an interest to me as to how films are used to sort of, if you like, condition people, to prepare people for what's coming. And if you look at films, and there's more than I can remember, but I mean just one, I mean the last James Bond film, and I think even the last Fast and Furious film, were all about technology, or the theft of technology, that enabled whoever had that technology to access every single camera and microphone that was in some way connected to the net. Yeah. And you know, basically, I think in the film Skyfall or whatever, the Bond film, you know, whoever it was, the villain, had access to this technology, which literally gave them the opportunity to access any camera, whether phone camera, speed camera, surveillance camera, and build a picture based on all these little pieces of the jigsaw. So yes, it is a very real issue, and certainly the British and the American security services, and I know the German security services, are very much on that one. But sadly, they're not yet admitting to any concerns about the health implications.
I just wanted to say that the yellow glasses are excellent for the computer as well. So being online. And
anything with blue light, yes.
You can pick them up on eBay, cheap enough for about £6.
Yeah, £6-7, yeah.
And I also wanted to know from the councillor, in my garden, I live in a council house in Haverfordwest, and I got 45-foot conifers. Have the council got the right to come and cut them down? Because I'm panicking.
Right, you said the question was for the councillor.
Man.
I'm only a community councillor for St Dogmaels, I don't know specific things like that.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
But it's a very good question, and it's one that, you know,
I don't know
should
the
ask.
property,
Yeah.
I'm rent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. She doesn't know. Because they are extremely big.
I can tell you that in Burnley, what's happening is that if there are large trees in some of the older council properties, what the council are doing is they are finding reasons to move the family out, offering them alternative accommodation on the basis that, oh, you know, we need to come in and renovate this house, so we actually need you to move. And then what's happening is they're coming in and cutting all the trees down that are in the front gardens. So, you know, they're in collusion. Look, Amy is working with Telefonica, which is working with Sheffield County Council. Yeah, there is somebody who obviously knows the whole picture. And they are developing strategies whereby they can go about this without drawing attention to it.
The trees are actually really quite shabby because the chemtrails over the last 7 years, I can see them dying myself. So I'm just concerned about it.
Well, it's not just the whatever it is that's in the aircraft pollution. It's also the side that the phone masts are on. Because if you go to Leeds, and this was pointed out to me, 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, when I was actually giving a presentation at Leeds University. And the professor who was hosting the event walked me around the campus and was pointing out the trees and showing me how one side of the tree was dying, and then he was pointing out the phone mast, and he was saying that is dying because of that, you know. So yes, I mean there are levels of awareness of this all around, yeah.
Question over here before, yeah.
About the LED lights, the LED street lights, I've got LED lights in my home. All my lights are LED. So what should I do? Is there any... I mean, I turn them off in the evenings, actually.
My understanding is the LED lights in your house are generally full spectrum. They've got red, green and blue light. That's my understanding, which isn't as harmful.
Well, I don't think they are. I don't think they are full spectrum.
Okay,
But I mean, there's no choice.
There is choice. I have no LED street lights. I do have LED street lights where I stay in East Lancashire, and I have total blackout for exactly that reason. But in the caravans, when I acquired them, they all had LED lighting. I have replaced all the LED lighting with halogen. In the first instance, if you can get the incandescent light, the old incandescent bulbs, yes, of course they cost a little bit more in terms of consumption, but in terms of potential health impact, It's incandescent first, halogen second, and I wouldn't have an LED light in my house.
You see, I used to, when it came to halogen, I used to get headaches with them. So when LED came, I went for LED, really expensively, and I hate them. And I always stuck with incandescent if I could.
Yeah.
But I'm everywhere, every time I go to any shop, I always go and look at the bulb counter to see if there's any incandescent. But I haven't seen any for at least 6 months.
No, yeah, I mean, you do have to look for them, but when they were fading out, my parents are still alive and kicking, well into their 90s, and I bought them a whole bunch of incandescent bulbs, and I said, under no circumstances do you replace the bulbs with anything other than these. I appreciate it is difficult to find them, and if you, I mean, obviously, it's whatever you experience. Well, if you're more comfortable, if you feel better with the LED, then obviously, okay. Then if you go online, you will find incandescent bulbs available.
I bought a box of the old light bulbs at a book sale.
Oh, boot sale, there you go.
Yeah, a couple of quid in a book sale.
Okay, this lady in the red here.
Do you know much about the effect on bees that EMF has? And do people realise, actually, do the sociopaths realise that it's the end of all of us if the bees are wiped out, and that's actually a big, it's not just pollution.
Okay,
it's affecting bees, it is.
Yeah, your question is basically that the 5G frequencies don't just affect humans and things, it affects all life, right from microbes to mammals, as you're saying.
It does.
That is true.
I think the most critical element...
mobile phone masts are already affecting bee populations.
Yes, absolutely, without any shadow of doubt, no question.
I don't know how many.
I mean, beekeepers, have said that particularly urban beekeepers are experiencing massive losses. The rural beekeepers seem to still be able to attract colonies. But the issue is this. The 5G frequencies change the chemical structure of the oxygen molecule. And basically it's the same technology that's used by the military in what's called active denial, which is where the military have developed these frequencies and they focus the beam and you feel as though you're being attacked by a flamethrower, basically, but you can't see anything because it's microwave frequency. So if you just put into your search engine military active denial or crowd active denial systems, you will see the marketing videos that have been produced by the companies that are producing this technology for military use and for crowd control, crowd dispersal. And of course they're using the dumb military men, as Henry Kissinger used to call them, as their guinea pigs. And you can see that they fire the directed energy beam at them and the crowd just scatters because it feels like a flamethrower has been turned on you. The 5G and what's happening is it's basically heating up the water molecule as well as the oxygen. And so consequently you literally feel as though you're on fire. And one biochemist that I was speaking to said, Ian, this is going to change our DNA. This is going to have impact that most people have no possible reference point for, and it's way beyond their bounds of perception. But they even suggested that O2, in the name, they were telling us what they were doing, because they're converting O2 to O3.
Okay, to me, it sounds quite shocking, but yeah, 5G gets out its end game. So, time to rise. Okay, I'm going to look at the next person at the back there in the middle with the black jumper and the beard. Yeah, with your hand.
So that is the question which you possibly answered. Is this the ultimate end game?
Yes.
Is this their intent?
Yes, you've heard of the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah, but that's just one aspect.
Yeah, and there's one aspect of it. It's a mass cult of biological life on the planet. In my mind, it's technology designed by humans for machines, without taking into account biological life forms. Our biological life forms are irrelevant with the AI agenda. This is what it is. It's an AI agenda, as far as I'm concerned. Would you agree, Ian? Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Look. as I said all the way through, this data is not being gathered for any human to sit and sift and analyse and put into an Excel spreadsheet. You know, this is for artificial intelligence. And, I mean, it's a different subject, but the rapid rate at which artificial intelligence and robotics are being rolled out, even the British government has quietly acknowledged that it is going to have such a massive impact on the workforce and the work opportunities that they've even said that by the year 2030, probably 80% of the jobs that people will be doing don't yet exist. I mean, there won't be any things like truck drivers.
So therefore, we're no longer repair.
Correct. So yeah, when you hear the reference to reducing carbon footprint, they're telling you what you're doing. You know, what are you made of? You know, and they are not concerned that the vast majority of the architects of this agenda are not concerned about the significant likely reduction of the human population. Now, do any of those people in the Bournemouth Ordnance Survey video know that? Of course they don't. Are they even aware of the potential negative health implications of 5G frequencies? Of course they're not. They are simply repeating the corporate mantra, you know, that all they need to know to ensure they get the next salary check. And if you did try and share this with any of those people in those videos, they would go straight into cognitive dissonance. Because if they actually took it on board, they might actually have to reflect on what they're doing and recognise that from a moral standpoint, they need to stand up and shut it down, but from a financial standpoint, best thing to do is just shut up and get on with it.
But they're going to get fried as well.
Yes! Karma is a real... Oh, no.
Okay, I'd like to question next to my friend Sean here. You speak up, please.
Ian, you were talking about in the presentation about in Bournemouth, you talked about underground assets. What are the underground assets?
Underground assets are basically its infrastructure, things like drainage, sewage, cabling. But there is also it's not mentioned in that video, and I'm not sure that it's what they're actually referencing. But what's also being looked at is a technology where they can also put these 5G transceivers inside drains and under manholes. So that basically you are literally bombarded, somebody said as above so below, but you are literally being bombarded with 5G transmitters and frequencies from the streetlights, and then 5G transmitters at any possible orifice that they can find. Yeah. But yes, it will map. It will give them the ability to map. I mean, effectively, it's electronic dowsing of the subsurface infrastructure.
Okay, I'm a bit hard to choose. This lady's had her hand up for a long time.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I read recently that 5G would be rolled out in South Wales via the wireless network of people's routers. And probably like other people in this room, I use an Ethernet cable, which means I disable the wireless on my router. However, my router was new last summer, and Russ from Trust Computing said to me, "Oh Deirdre, you've got wireless coming out of your router. It's the excess wireless that is still coming out despite the fact that you've disabled the wireless." And on this router that I got, I was really interested to see that BT told you how to disable the wireless. They've never told me how to do that before. I used to have to tell their call centres how to do it. And encourage us that if we needed to use an Ethernet cable. So Russ then went into the management website of the router, and I got the number for that, and he took, and I don't know what he did several more steps further, and then he disabled the excess Wi-Fi. So I think this is something that we could all do if you have a router at home. Certainly go on an Ethernet cable and then get the rest of it got rid of. And Russ's father runs Go Mango in Cardigan. And I said to him, could he mention this to Russ, and could Russ perhaps leave the instructions of what we have to do in the shop? So at least there'd be loads of us sabotaging that.
Well, you're not sabotaging, you're actually protecting yourself, because the 5G transmission from your router is not going to have much impact beyond your house. But what it would be is part of the surveillance and interrogation technology, providing the data from all the microchips that are embedded as part of the Internet of Things. It will certainly have the capacity for that. So by disabling it, you're actually effectively putting a blindfold across it so that it can't do that, it can't contribute to that part of the network. And you're certainly taking a significant step to protect yourself from these frequencies. By the way, in France, it is now mandatory that all schools that have children under the age of 12, I believe it is, are all hardwired and there's no Wi-Fi. In many of the schools in Paris, phones and iPads are banned, again, for the under 12s. In Germany, their security services, and I won't bore you with all the details, but I watch what the German security services are doing very closely. They are very, very astute, and they are more open in terms of sharing the information, not necessarily, in the daily press, but they make the information available. And the German security services advised the German government in 2008 that they should put out an advisory policy that Wi-Fi should not be used in homes with young children, that the houses should be hardwired. And so that's over a decade ago. And obviously what's being rolled out here is far more pernicious than the 3G that was being used in 2008. So absolutely a smart move. Steiner schools actually had a policy of no Wi-Fi, but I've noticed now the Steiner school in Totnes has Wi-Fi. So, this is how it works. You just keep, it's really hard to sort of just keep that at bay, because there's always somebody just saying, no, you're just getting worried about a rampant conspiracy theory, until something happens like with the spate of nosebleeds.
Can I just ask a quick question following on from that? Does anyone know the name of a router that is safe, or can anyone tell me, or tell everybody, the best plug-in router?
Just Ethernet. Just Ethernet.
One that doesn't have wireless capability.
We've got a new router, it's still doing...
Yeah, but just get one that has no wireless capability. Anyone that's issued from the companies is probably going to have Wi-Fi capability. But if you specifically ask for a router that doesn't have Wi-Fi capability because you want to hardwire everything, they should provide you with one.
Okay, we're going to take the lady in the back and then Dave afterwards, yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing.
They can be retrofitted.
Yeah.
But the round thing previously used to be the sensor,
Yes.
didn't it? So how can you tell?
Usually you've got an antenna, sort of so big, and if you've got the small round bits on the new LEDs, they can easily be retrofitted with a dielectric lens.
Because I've noticed there's some that have a little pointy bit on top as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're obviously an antenna, but the other ones look cunningly like the old
Exactly.
sensors.
Cunningly like the old sensors,
Yeah.
yes.
So it still means it's
Yeah.
got that.
I mean, just go along and basically, or you can look. Freedom of information requests are not yet used by the wider community. I have to say, freedom of information requests have been absolutely amazing for us in the anti-fracking campaign.
Well, for me and I've sent in FOIs to Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire asking them about 5G. One of the questions was, what are your plans for 5G? Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire County Council both came back to me and said, we have no plans for 5G. Yet I go back and look, in 2017 January, every single councillor in South Wales, including Ceredigion, signed the Swansea Bail with Theresa May. It's £14 billion injection of cash to bring in the smart agenda to Swansea and the rest of South Wales. So how can they say they've got no plans for 5G?
Can I just say, if you're going to do freedom of information requests, use the website whatdotheyknow.com. You know, with all due respect, when you write a letter or send an email, if you put at the top freedom of information request, but it's